Happy Easter, guys. I hope you guys had a great Easter. Um, Today was a doozy, I will say. And it's been a little while since I have actually done a reading, specifically on the geopolitics that's currently going on. It's a lot to follow, it's too much going on. I understand what the play is. The play is obviously for us to be bogged down and distracted by all these nonsensical topics and events like NASA launching Artemis and the missiles, whether they're missiles or meteors. What else? There's conversations around just topics that are really not what we should be focused on. And then, of course, there's the topics that we should be focused on, like the conflict with Iran, our relationship with Israel, all of the things. Okay. I want to know what's going on with the orange man because I feel like, there's been a lot of conversation even around his health status. There was a report, well, not even an official report, it was a rumor that was floating around that he actually was admitted to a hospital. However, that just seems to be unverified and unconfirmed because he was apparently seen touring, like, I guess not the monuments, but he was touring, like the Washington Mall, and he went to do some golf, I guess. I don't know. Listen, let's just get to what's going on with him today because that unhinged tweet that he left for everybody to see early in the morning, it really was just a testament to, number one, this is the first time I was really thinking, like, what are we going to do? Because is somebody going to stop him? Like, there's some conversations floating around right now about, like, the 25th Amendment. And I'm just trying to figure out, like, what is taking them so long to remove someone who could be actually escalating things and putting us in a precarious situation that we may not be able to ever get out of. Now, um, the overall energy for these cards that came out, the first three cards is actually what really stood out to me. Global trade war, Mossad, and then we have oil and gas empire. Duh. Then we also have Warhawk. The Warhawk card. Uh, I wrote Hegseth and Rubio, so it could point to one or both of them, or it could just point to another Warhawk who's a part of the administration. Um, Now, that was kind of like the gist of what's going on, right? But obviously, there's so many intricate details that I can't fully sift through in one reading, but I will do my best to cover all of the bases of what has come out. Now, natural disasters as weapons came out, and it's weird because the natural disasters that showed up in this reading have to do with like fire and water, which are things that should cancel themselves out, right? We have this tsunami wave, we have acid rainfall, there's rising tides here. But then we also had something about an unexplained explosion. So there's a lot of red in this reading. I don't know if someone's seeing red. I don't know if this is like just pointing to the destructive energy going on right now. But either way, natural disasters as weapons kind of made me feel like that has to do with what I had been talking about last year during those California fires. And we're seeing a couple of fires pop up in different places. There was an explosion, I think, in Nebraska. No, there was a fire in Nebraska, an explosion in Texas or New Hampshire. Somebody correct me if I'm incorrect. We have seen, obviously, we know of everything that's going on in Iran. However, as it relates to the home front, this is what I'm talking about. So I say that to say that there could be due energy weapons being used to, you know, they're being used on certain state commodities, I will say. It's like, it's almost an attack on our resources, our food supply, all of that, right? So I feel like we're seeing that, but we're not calling it that. We're just saying, oh, it's a fire. Now, of course, wildfires break out all the time naturally, but I feel like we're seeing a lot of unnatural things. So the natural disasters as weapons, it's like clearly. Now, you could read that two different ways, but the way that I'm picking up on that is more like an unnatural occurrence, okay? Using that kind of as a cover up. Um Now, we have DNA planted, which is crossing the card poisoned consumer products, which I feel like is going to be a bigger story sooner rather than later. Obviously, a lot of us have been awake to this for years. I myself have been vegan for almost 10 years consistently. I started being vegetarian when I was in high school. However, however, I think there may be something that comes out in the headlines that is pointing to either, some major recall with our food, or them talking about the human aspect of the meat that is being produced. Okay. Now, Control Through Wealth came out. There could be something significant about 50 to 100 people controlling wealth. This makes me feel like this is talking about like the insider trading that we've seen from people. I think Hegseth is currently being investigated, or they're considering probing him because of the insider trading and betting on different things as it relates to war and war related things, whatever. Okay. During the spring came out. This card has come out a few times in the last couple of days. I've done some readings offline, and this card came out. So I do feel like this is definitely a relevant conversation. Um, Most of what is coming out is like immediate. It doesn't feel like this is like far into the distance, or something that is yet to occur. This feels like this is all happening right now. Cold case, crimes from the past that resurface with new evidence or relevance. This may have something to do with war crimes being re-investigated or revealed to us in some way, I'm hearing. Now, this fire tornado with Europe being right next to it, there could be something going on in Europe very soon that has to do with um, an explosion. I mean, I don't know how else to put this lightly. I understand that I am reading on situations that are factual, right? Situations that are factual, but I am using mm, a lot of what other people would consider to be speculation, conjecture, whatever, right? But I do feel like it is important to look at a lot of these things from a more esoteric slash spiritual perspective, because there's something that's about to wrap up. And it does seem as though we are being pushed, we're being literally shoved into something um, that we're not going to be able to come out of. Okay. Now, let's get into the rest of these cards, because there were some other things that came up that I feel like is kind of crazy. Okay. Whose building status came out, and what crossed it was papal bloodlines, blood tied to the Vatican and the Catholic Church, influencing religion and global politics. Now, this card is interesting that comes out like this, because this is coming out right after the Pope kind of pretty much denounced the president in so many words. Okay. Now, there is something going on as far as like our alliances. I heard something about our alliances turning into enemies. So currently, right now, again, correct me if I'm wrong. I do not have the long list, but I'll say the main powers, okay, that I think are, I mean, from what I understood, are supposed to be in alignment with each other. U.S., the UK, France, and pro-Israel. But we've already seen the UK say they don't want to have these wars. We've already seen France say, no, thank you. This is a little bit too much. We just want peace. Okay. Now there's a congressman or a congresswoman who could be brought to task about something, or who could also disappear. I told you guys a couple months ago that we would see a whole lot more people disappearing, and look at what's happened. The fact that we are not talking about, I mean, it's like, okay, the people who are aware, we are having those conversations, but as far as mainstream, they're not really pushing the conversation. I've seen a couple people mention it here or there, but again, there's so many pressing, immediate topics that they're covering that have to do with the war and all this, that they're not really doing in-depth investigations on some of these things, okay? Because I guess in their mind that can wait. However, um another thing that could go on with this congressman or congresswoman or just other people within the administration, they're being offered fake diplomatic immunity with this card here. It's like there's a question mark on this card. I don't remember why I put a question mark, but fake diplomatic immunity could be a motive in some way. I don't know if this is also just about people being put in positions to shield the orange daddy, because I think something about these recent firings, it's like they were always going to happen. There was always going to be a fall guy and someone to come in front. And I think with the hiring process or whatever it is, who was getting appointed, like the plan was always to have like the front facing person. This is what I'm saying. There was always a plan to have a front facing person who would be unaware of the fact that their time would come. They may have had like some inklings about it right before it happened, but as far as like from the beginning, they had no idea that they would be pushed out into that. So we saw Kristi Noem, we saw Pam Bondi. There's people talking about Kash Patel being next or Hegseth being next. Whoever is next, it doesn't really matter. It's not about the list. Like the list, whoever it is, it doesn't even matter. The fact is that is whoever has an active, influential role within the administration right now is up for scrutiny, persecution, prosecution, whatever the case is. There something is moving, but I don't know exactly how it's gonna move. Obviously, I don't know all the things. However, now let's get into these other things about the what is this? Okay. Who moves information is a question mark card, right? Underneath it is the thought police, monitoring and controlling the beliefs and thoughts of the populace, especially descendants. Now, this card, or these two cards in combination with each other, very interesting to me because just 2 days ago, I think it was 2 days ago, Trump ordered Planet Labs, which is the company that provides satellites to open source intelligence. What is OSINT again? Open source intelligence network something. Child, I can't remember, but OSINT. Okay, so those little things that you see like monitoring the situation or global monitoring platforms, those apps that people have created where you can kind of like get a bird's eye view of what's going on globally. He shut all that down. So, and he's done this before, which I did not know. Now, that is important because basically everybody is blind to what is actually happening. So we're having a sort of like blackout of our own. And there's two blackout cards, which I'm going to get to here. But the fact that we are experiencing a blackout ourselves, you know, there's been conversations about also about the grid could be getting hit. The meteors could be not meteors and missiles that they're trying to knock the satellites out of the thing, right? So if let's just say that this invisible proxy war that Iran is really having with us, because I mean, some of it is invisible, some of it is not. As far as like Israel's concerned, I feel like they feel like it's important to put hands on his Israel, especially since they're in close proximity. But as far as like the Americans are concerned, they are dealing with this on a more indirect way. They are, um, I have picked up on this before about there being like cyber attacks, but there's some type of virus that's within some major system of ours that we have that they aren't either aware of. Like we either can't see it, we can't see them spying on us, or we don't even know. It's something about our systems. That's all I'm going to say. Something about our systems being compromised, privacy issue of some sort. And I'm not talking about like our surveillance state in America currently. I'm talking about like Iran having access to certain systems already, and they're just sitting pretty and they're waiting. Okay, so there's a lot of discretion involved in a lot of their tactics. And let me also say something about Iran. I really do appreciate the way that they are. Obviously, I don't agree with everything, especially when it comes to war. It's hard to agree on these things and who's doing better, who's, because everybody's killing people. But I will say that Iran does seem to be having at least an ounce of integrity that I don't even think that we have left in our administration at all. Now, um, let's get into this little second row. So we have crypto wars underneath global trade war and Mossad. Okay. Mossad, Israel. Okay. Mossad got clarified and crossed by Israel, and Israel is crossing karmic retribution. Israel's doing this because they feel like they have the right to do it. They feel like they have the right to kill people. They feel like they have the right to insert themselves. They feel like they have the right to um, tag team a group with us. They feel like they have a right to push us into wars that we have no real interest in. But I feel like there is something that we're taking an L on, and it has to do with Israel, and it has to do with this oil and gas situation. Okay, there is a last witness, someone holding critical knowledge that can unravel the truth. This is crossing Hegseth and Rubio. Okay, so this is part of the reason why I don't necessarily know. I don't know how many more people he can get rid of and move to a lesser influential role, like, because there can only be so many jobs, right? There can only, well, I mean, I guess he can create other jobs within the administration, but as far as like the titles that we know of, Pam Bondi being the GA, right, the general attorney or something. What is she? Something, right? General attorney, something. Um, we all know that these shifts are really demotions. Okay, they're trying to act like this is like, oh, thank you for my new position. Christy did the same thing. She was like, oh, thank you, I'm so happy that I'm gonna be able to serve the country and do this and that. Girl, it's like, please, 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 please deal with your husband and his cross-dressing. No shade, but you need to deal with your home front. And I don't even understand why she would want to be seen at all, to be honest. um and something I'm picking up on is that that conversation, or whatever blackmail that man went through, because there's something about her husband and the White House knowing something before it came out, and I think they tried to get ahead of it by firing her, even though there were plenty of other reasons why she needed to get fired. But something about the story, they knew about the story. Anyway, um, which I mean, it's not groundbreaking or profound for me to say. It's just something I'm picking up on. Okay. Now, the vaccine mandate is here. Leaders leveraging public health as a way to control freedoms and rights. Good luck with that, because I don't think they're going to be able to do what they did the last time. Whatever this new lockdown will look like, if it's going to be based in, um, if it's going to be a situation where they're trying to get us to conserve energy right? So it's like a there's like a caveat to the lockdown, like maybe damn. Okay, so the way that I'm looking at it from before, the last time we had a lockdown, a lot of us were working from home, but we were still moving around. Okay, this time around, I think it's going to be a little different if we do have a lockdown. Okay, I do feel like it may be different because now we could be forced into literally parking it. Because if we do not, and no pun intended, because if we do not have gas, if we run out of our reserves, which they say, oh, we are not going to run out of our reserves because we have so much. I swear I don't believe nothing anybody says anymore, because all the things that we're supposed to be so great at and big and bad about, like, it's all questionable to me, even down to our army. Oh, we're supposed to have the biggest, greatest army in the world. I don't know. I can't confirm. Sorry, it might be a large army, but as far as like being equipped and stuff, I listen, as far as I'm concerned, that is up for a discussion. Um, okay. Angel of Justice is out here again, so I know there's definitely reading, if you've been on the channel before, you know that Angel of Justice comes out in the readings about Donald for some reason. Okay. A lot of it has to do with the energy that it's like he was what do you call it? Inducted or introduced. What was the inauguration, okay, whatever that was, when he got sworn in as the president this time for this second term, the angel of justice was, this is what I'm seeing in my mind's eye, okay? So take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. I am only someone who works from an intuitive perspective, and I can only tell you what I pick up on. Now, the angel of justice was kind of like, um, it seems like the angel of justice is behind him, right? And he was brought in with not the help of angel of justice. It's more like, okay, there's so many things. Let me say this. One, I feel like this is not the same Trump. I'm not talking about the fact that his health has declined, or, people talk about him being crazy. I don't even think he's crazy. I do not think he's crazy. I do not think he is someone whose cognition has declined. Yes, he's an older man, but I just don't truly believe that he's crazy. I think this is a sane person who has crazy ways of thinking, who's a narcissist, obsessive with certain things, but crazy. I feel like we need to stop using that as a way to describe this particular person, and I mean other people as well, but this particular situation, I feel like that's too dismissive. We cannot just say, oh, he's crazy. That's too dismissive. It does not accurately describe what is currently going on. Now, back to the angel of justice, though, really quickly on that. I saw the energy come in, okay, whether he was fully aware of it or not. It's something about him acknowledging. Remember when he acknowledged Saint Michael, Archangel Michael, before he was sworn in? He acknowledged him, and I remember taking note of it and saying this was an interesting choice. But at the inauguration, you saw how he got not sworn in, but he did some little ceremony with like 4 different pastors. It was like a black pastor, a rabbi, a priest, and somebody else, right? So it's like he used the energy, but he used it incorrectly. Like, it's almost as if like God was trying to give him an opportunity for something, not just to do the right thing. That's a little bit too like broad, and it doesn't really describe what I'm seeing, but it's something about like he came in with this energy. He currently is not in this energy, but the energy is still around him. Okay, this is someone who I don't think has a personal relationship with God. I think he just uses Christianity. This was just like a way to get the nationalists on board. But what's bigger than that is, God will use you in a different way. Sometimes God will use you in a different way than you expected, right? And I've been saying this for a long time. I think that's what's happening with him. However, it's like he's talking directly to the devil or getting advice directly from the devil. All right. He thinks he's getting divine downloads or something, but he's really communing with the devil himself. All right. Now we have the Vanishing Act card, which I already told you has something to do with these missing people and people who could go missing in the future. Someone disappearing mysteriously, leaving a trail of suspicion. There have been talks about other people, like other scientists who I guess work for NASA or somebody else, that are concerned about them being next. Okay, but okay. I think the most interesting thing is their relationship. Like the relationship with all these 8 scientists. I think it's 8 right now. They were all somehow involved with plasma or anti-gravity, and there was something else that was really interesting. I think it's crazy that some of them knew each other too. Like it's something that they were working on specifically. And another thing I was reading, I wasn't reading. I saw a video of this Asian scientist. I can't remember like her full details, but she was like studying something about anti-gravity too. And she was doing these studies on her own at one point, and then she got hired by the government and had to stop publishing her work, which she didn't like. Okay, because it's almost as if like you're working and none of your work is actually yours. Like you don't own the intellectual property, so to speak. Okay, so there's something about that. The public trust in institutions is right next to Vanishing Act. And then we have this digital blackout, which I want to get to. Okay, so the digital blackout, we know that Iran has been in the dark for the past 3 weeks. We know that Cuba not too long ago was in the dark. I think they just got some little shipment not too long ago of oil or something. So I think the country, I think, is currently okay, but I could be incorrect about that. The digital blackout, though, orchestrated in internet or digital collapse, chaos. Now I wonder. I don't know what happened with Iran's grid. I mean, I'm sure we blew it up or something, right? But to be in the dark for 3 weeks, like, why is there not a bigger emphasis on that whole situation? It's like they kind of skim over that when they're talking about what's going on. It's almost like all the reports about the war, there's a depersonalization of it that I really just cannot get with. I have to constantly, like, I'm constantly in this state of shock looking at some of these places that are being destroyed because I have to remember, like, damn, there are people who live there. There are children that are there. There's people who are trying to do regular daily stuff that all of that has kind of been cut out. Like eating, you know, if you had, just think, okay, it's just so crazy to me. Like, this is so crazy to me because I feel like most people really do not really think about the not just the casualties of war, but just like how the day to day could be changed significantly. Over in America, there's so many people, especially these little not little, I'm not trying to be rude, but the prepper channels and those you know what channels I'm talking about, child. Those channels are having a field day right now. They keep telling us, oh, you need to, and I keep my feeds and stuff they had a lot to do with like homesteading and like farm life, because that is like my dream. It's always been that, right, for a little while. And I feel like all of that is not really gonna matter. Like, we can be prepared, but what is preparation? Having food in your pantry, yes, is important. But the way that groceries are set up currently, the cost of inflation, the shrinkflation going on with the groceries, perishables, you're going to have to be very creative with. But I'm saying all this to say that if we stocked up, say for instance, our freezers and our refrigerators with, say, either all of our stockpile would be there or half of it, whatever the case is, anything in that refrigerator is going to go bad. So heating up anything, that's not happening. Calling on the phone, that's not happening. Okay, so I'm just thinking, like, what level of preparation could we really have? I mean, I'm being cynical right now, but I think somebody understands what I'm saying. I'm saying it's just going to be a significantly different ball game if the power goes out. Okay, like it affects way too many other things that I don't think the average American is really prepared to think about. Um, but back to the digital blackout, there was another card that came out. I don't even remember why I wrote this card. Sky high blackouts in Africa. Something could be going on with Africa and blackouts, which is interesting because I don't know why I'm picking up on France. Something about France. Now, the other card that came out. Let's get into these other cards now, and I'm gonna close out because it's just too much. Now there could be. Oh, let me do these little offshoots really quickly. So CNN headlines. There could be some breaking story that comes out of CNN soon that has to do with bunker busting bombs used on Iran's underground nuclear sites. I don't know when that's going to happen. I don't know if that is going to happen. I don't know if that's just a thought. But I got the ping that a breaking news story or some type of exclusive, somebody's going to report about some bunker busting bombs. Okay. We also have some cards of concern here with the disaster relief fund. Money and resources allocated to aid sometimes mishandled. The rebuilding contract, economic opportunities that arise after disasters, often marred by corruption. The global aid deception card, hidden agendas behind international assistance. Now, I feel like this is so interesting to me because these cards came out back to back. They are all having to do with deception and destruction and using money and resources in the wrong way. And I think that's what's happening with this whole situation with Gaza. Them having conversations about maybe possibly creating a new strait, the Ben Gurion Strait, blowing something up to create, a new canal, or creating a wall, or not a wall, a road directly from, or cutting through over to Gaza and whatever. All those build outs that they've been talking about. Okay, all those coastline build outs that they've been talking about to make Israel fat and rich. And of course, we would benefit from it. However, under what cost? All right, now we have the Antichrist rollout. There's some type of secret audio recording. I don't know who has a secret recording. I don't know if this has to do with the recording that we heard earlier this week, though I don't think we were supposed to hear, that the White House removed, where Donald Trump was talking about. This was when he shouted out Pam Bondi right before he fired her. He made some remarks about. Was it the remark about the oil? Go get the oil yourself, or something else? He said that was crazy that the White House took down. It was a live feed and he said the wrong thing and they took it down. Now we have currency manipulation, governments and courts devaluing or inflating currencies to disable economies. Okay, now this is where we need to get to this other card. So we have global military coup, surprise where military takes over the government leading to a new regime. I already picked up on this last year. This card has been coming out consistently a lot in these readings that have to do with the geopolitics. This has already happened. But what's funny is that this last week, I saw a couple of creators actually talking about this. Like, are we going to see a military coup? I'm telling you, these people are already here. Okay? These people are already here. They've already invaded every place that they possibly can, every department that they possibly can. The military coup is nothing more than a mix of people who are going to be revolting against, like, war crimes and doing things that are illegal or unconstitutional, there's going to be that group of people within the army that obviously are talking about this. But the military coup that people are talking about, where they are saying that the government is going to take, anyway, they already did. They already did. Okay. Yes, there's some good people within the military. However, as far as the people who are in position, that's what I'm talking about. The people who are in higher positions, they are being plucked out, and the coup has already started. Okay. HARP influences here, weather manipulation theories or unseen forces altering the climate. We've already talked about this. I told you something has to do with these natural disasters turn weapons. Okay. They're using rain. I noticed something also too, and I don't think it's by accident. One of the things that I think is interesting is this year or in the last year, we've seen a lot of weather phenomena that they're blaming on global warming or whatever. Whatever. Okay. I'm not here to debate about what it is. Okay. However, we do know that the weather has been strange. It's like it seems as though if one state gets rain, or if there's a rainstorm or a cold front, it seems like we all experience it at the same time. Like it just turns into a nice little wave. Or we'll see like polarizing sides of the country, where one side is like extremely hotter than it normally is and extremely colder than it already is, right? Now I feel like these dew weapons are being used, and HARP and um what is DARPA? I forget what DARPA is. HARP is being used right now, and these dew weapons are being used right now to create temperatures and climates that are unnatural. And I was thinking about it today about how so it was raining, and then I heard on the news that it was like raining in a few other places, but it seemed odd to me. I know we're in spring, but something about the rain and how it showed up didn't seem normal, if that makes sense. Like it came yesterday or in the middle of the night. It was like a kind of like a little mini storm. And I was thinking, I wonder if they would think about using rain. Like say our adversary used rain on us to slow things down or make things like not as visible to us or something like that. I feel like they're doing that. We've heard, or I have read about, like in the Vietnam War, like they even used HARP back then or something like it. Weather manipulation was used to kind of slow down the enemy. So why wouldn't they do it now and do it way better and make it so that like we would be vulnerable in some way, right? So before the end of the year, there could be some crazy false flag attack, okay, by a Middle Eastern royal or ordered by a Middle Eastern royal. I do not know who this Middle Eastern royal is. However, I do have somebody in my mind. I can't think of his name, but it's the big, tall, younger-ish guy. Um, and I think he just, if I'm not mistaken, I think he just teamed up with someone. I don't know if he teamed up with Israel or if he teamed up with Iran. It couldn't have been Iran. I think it had to be. I think it had to be Israel. But something about when the headline popped up, because it's like I consume um, so much news and alternative media that the amount of headlines that I remember is so crazy, and I'll have like these split reactions to them. And when I saw this when I saw this headline, my first reaction was, that's interesting. So, and I feel like it was something to do with like them being an ally or not, but they flipped or they're going to, okay? Before the end of the year, there's going to be some unexplained explosion. Now, this also could just hint to the unexplained explosion. Well, it wasn't really unexplained, but you know, like how that everybody was trying to like, oh, who done it with the bombing, the first strike that we did for this round of war, with Iran, with the children, the schoolgirls. I think it was like 126 schoolgirls or something like that who died. Okay, so Something about that, or this is a future event. Is there anything else that I need to cover? Because I'm about to. Okay, the storm before the calm. I mentioned something about things getting worse before they get better. Which I mean, like, again, that doesn't feel like it's super profound for me to be saying that. However, something about, again, this may have something to do with the weather. Storm before the calm. Like, there could be something that we need to, like, sit out on, or maybe even Iran wants the American people to sit out on something. I don't know why I'm picking up on that. But I think the biggest takeaway from this whole situation is not only is this unhinged, all of what's going on. It seems as though like we could be really losing our footing in a major way, in a way that we can't place a value on right now, or in a way that we can't like fully we can't fully discern like the future effects of. That is what I am seeing. I think that's where I'm going to close out, because I'm just like, I need to be able to go to sleep. And I feel like some of these things, part of the reason why I dropped this is because I have not done a geopolitical reading. However, in a while at least. But however, I feel like there's something going on like that. Charles, and then this Tuesday deadline at 8 o'clock. Like, I'm so sick of hearing about these deadlines. This is probably the fourth 2-week deadline that we have gotten. First, it was April 15th. No, first it was like a couple weeks ago. It was like, oh, you have 48 hours. Then it was like, oh, we'll extend it 3. Oh, you have until Friday. Oh, you got until Tuesday. Like, shut up. Like, and everybody wants to talk about this man being such, they've talked about him being able to negotiate and his deal making strategies and all that. I can't tell. Because first things first, in negotiating, you never really want to like lowball yourself. You don't want to throw out certain things that lets the other person know that you're either weak or desperate. And I feel like that's what we're doing right now. We look desperate. We look like we don't have, like, word is bond is not something that would ever come out of his mouth, because like that just does not refer to any way that he is currently negotiating. This is not negotiating, is what I'm basically trying to say. This is not negotiating. This is threatening. This is bullying. This is giving someone an ultimatum that doesn't really hold weight. Like, I don't think they take him seriously. And I've been saying, oh, they don't take us seriously, but child, we are not in this fight. I'm not a part of this. I didn't do it. I feel like there's no reason why people should be dragged into disputes that world leaders are having with themselves. Like, this is literally personal, and we have been brought into something that I pray that we are covered, okay? Because the way I feel like those missiles or those meteors are missiles, I'm like, how much longer is it going to take for them to actually not be intercepted? Because at some point, Israel's little dome broke. I mean, I've been seeing a whole lot of bombs, a whole lot of wreckage. It's looking very not cute over there. But yeah, that's it. I'm done. I love y'all. I will see you in the next one. Trying to be a little consistent. I have not been, because there is a lot going on behind the scenes in my own life. But that's, none of y'all business.